I'm Will Thompson, and I'm a senior at Careerline Tech Center, where I study automotive technology, and I'm certified by the National Association for Automotive Service Excellence in various areas of automotive repair. Today I'd like to talk to you about routine maintenance on your vehicle. Everyone knows the inconvenience of a broken down car. Unfortunately, the easiest way to prevent that is just by following the routine maintenance schedule offered by the manufacturer. Everyone knows the obvious: check your engine oil. Engine oils last usually around 3,000 to 5,000 miles. A conventional engine oil should be changed every 3,000 miles, whereas some synthetics claim they can last up to 8,000. Personally, I would never run your oil more than 5,000 miles, as even those synthetics can degrade and gunk up the delicate engine oil galleries where the oil flows inside the engine block. This can starve the engine of necessary oil that it needs to stay lubricated and can cause anything from bearing failure to thrown rods. Next, to check your engine oil, it's as simple as pulling the dipstick usually. While some modern cars use electronic sensors to monitor the engine oil level, most older vehicles use a very primitive dipstick technology where you simply pull the dipstick out, clean it, insert it back into the dipstick tube, and pull it back out to check your engine oil. The engine oil on this Accord is low. You can see because these two dots represent where the engine oil should be on the dipstick. You want it to be dead center in the middle usually. Some dipsticks have a min, max, and some companies tell you to check your engine oil with the engine running or the engine off. Make sure you don't let any debris fall in the dipstick tube, or you don't let anything fall in there because it can harm the engine. Next, another thing that I think is important to check on the regular is your air filter. Your air filter is usually right up front of the engine bay in a plastic air filter housing, which can be simply removed with a couple clips, or in this case, a couple 8mm bolts. Your engine air filter filters all of the intake air that's going into your engine. This helps keep debris like leaves, dust, feathers, insects out of the inside of your engine. It's incredibly important because when it gets plugged up, it can cause decreased fuel economy, cause engine hesitation and stuttering, and just lead to all sorts of problems. It's incredibly simple to check. You simply pull the air filter out, pull it up to the light, and make sure that you can see the light through the air filter. If you can't, you can try and blow it out with an air gun, or you can try and clean it in various ways. But simply, I would just get a new one. They're usually around $8 to $10. Reinstall the air filter with this in the right orientation, and retighten the air filter housing. I'll finish that in a second. Next, it's always important to check all the fluids in your car. These fluids have a specified service life, and while some companies say that, like Honda, that their transmission fluid is a lifetime transmission fluid, that's just not true. It still only lasts around 100,000 miles. They simply say it's a lifetime fluid because it lasts for the lifetime of the warranty. They don't care what happens to your vehicle afterwards. So, to check your transmission fluid on this vehicle, it's as simple as coming up to this dipstick down here and pulling it out. Usually, you'll check automatic transmissions with the vehicle running, but you can still check the quality of the fluid with the engine off. This fluid is a little dark and it smells a little bit burnt, but it's not black or brown, so I wouldn't be too concerned about it yet. Carefully reinsert the dipstick back into the dipstick tube. Other fluids, like coolant and brake fluid and power steering fluid, are just as important. Your coolant should be changed on a roughly 50 to 60,000 mile service interval because the ethylene glycol compounds begin to degrade and lose their effectiveness at lubricating and maintaining a cool engine. Next, brake fluid. Brake fluid is a hygroscopic fluid, meaning that it absorbs water. This is very bad for your brake system, as once brake fluid mixes with water, it turns into a black, sludgy compound that no longer effectively transfers force from your brake hydraulic master cylinder to your brake calipers. This causes brake fade, reduced brake force, and just generally makes your brake system operate worse. And it can be a pain to clean out. Once you get water in your brake system, it can be really hard to get out of the lines, and sometimes even requires replacing the lines and the calipers themselves. So one easy thing you can do is just always make sure that your brake fluid reservoir is sealed, and that you make sure that you're checking your brake fluid every 30 to 40,000 miles to make sure it's still nice and clear. And if it's not, if it's starting to turn amber or brown, get it flushed. It's usually around $50 at a local auto store, and it's honestly just nice peace of mind. Lastly, you have power steering fluid. Power steering fluid is another hydraulic fluid, only this one isn't hygroscopic, so you don't have to worry about it as much. Power steering fluid is another hydraulic fluid used to force the power steering rack around. And honestly, these fluids last around 60 to 80,000 miles. You really don't have to worry about them too much. They don't degrade that much. The really only thing you have to worry about is once the pump starts to break down and it starts to burn the fluid itself. I can look, by smelling this fluid, it's starting to burn pretty badly. So I would honestly be starting to look into replacing the power steering pump on this vehicle, because the fluid itself isn't burning, it's the pump itself burning the fluid. So while you can flush and replace your power steering fluid, which isn't necessarily a bad thing to do after 60 to 80,000 miles, you're really gonna have the same symptoms after not too long. That's most of the engine-based stuff, but one more thing I want to talk about is getting your battery tested. Your battery is what's responsible for providing the cold cranking amperage responsible for engaging the starting motor and starting your vehicle. On cold days in the winter, the amperage that your battery can supply lowers, and it might not have the power to start your vehicle. So every fall, I like to get my battery tested with a tool like this. And while you may not have access to an expensive tool like this, most local auto parts stores will do it for free. So that's one more thing I just like to do for peace of mind. And lastly, the one more thing I want to talk about to you today is tires. I talked about it in another video a little more in depth about tire tread wear and maintenance, but maintaining tire pressures and tread is a very important tool, because this car doesn't have TPMS, so I would have no idea if I had a flat tire. It doesn't give me a light on the gauge, it doesn't tell me, it's only going to tell me if there's an emissions code. That's the only thing the check engine light really does, is it tells you if you're polluting too much. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the tire, remove the valve stem cap, cheap 99-cent tire gauges you can get at any gas station, auto parts store, Walmart, Meijer, any store really will have these. You put it on there, and it shoots this end out, and it gives you a readout. In this case, I'm interested in PSI, because that's the stamp on the door card. It says 32 pounds per square inch of tire pressure. So I'm going to check all four and make a mental note of what pressures they're at. If I could get the valve stem cap back on. There we go. So, if I was actually checking them, I would check all four, and then I would come over here, and every vehicle will have a placard stamped on the door card that shows the specified tire pressures. This vehicle has them set at 30 psi on all four corners. Some vehicles will do like 32 on the front, 36 on the rear, or a different split. So it's always important to always check what the manufacturer specifies for your vehicle. Tire pressures play an important role in fuel economy, in handling characteristics, and drivability. So it's an important thing to keep track of, especially if your car doesn't have TPMS like this one. So that's just an overall basic rundown of basic vehicular maintenance. It's just a couple things that you can check at home, and you can really just have peace of mind that your vehicle's running well. Really, the most important things I would really take out of this is fluids. Fluids are really important. A lot of manufacturers are really pushing to extend the lives of these fluids so they don't have to service them as much during warranty, and I think that's not great, because you get people who really think that's lifetime transmission fluid, and that's why you get transmissions in Hondas blowing up at 120,000 miles, at 130,000 miles, when really, if you maintain them well, they'll run for 200, 300,000 miles. So just really keep up on your fluid changes, follow your manufacturer recommended maintenance schedule, but also be skeptical about it. If your manufacturer is telling you, oh, you don't need to change that fluid ever, it's probably not true. Hydraulic fluids break down. Oils break down. Just use common sense when you're thinking about it. And that's really all of my advice for you today. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a little bit, and I hope you'll come back next time.